Hey, Funded Youth. This is a recap on our Introductory to 3D Printing class. This is a very basic up and running class where the I've Never Printed community would generally join us. We go over the basics of the Move tool, the Rotate tool, the Scale tool, mirroring, Infill, and just your really basics. Once you've taken this class, you can come back and access the 3D Print Lab, but what this is for is just the basics. This does not make you a pro. This does not guarantee that prints will never fail. This is just a recap on everything we've covered in case you've forgotten anything. So let's jump in. Let's go to thingiverse.com and let's go ahead and let's download a file. Let's find something like flexi.com. That works. Something with flexi. I personally like the little dinosaur here. It's very generic. I'm going to come here and click on that dinosaur. And then there are multiple ways of downloading this. You can download all files, but if there's only one file, download all files is not the best way to go. You would instead come down to files over here and then find the single file you want. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click download on this. And then I'm going to save it to my, I know I've got somewhere naming my delete me replace. And I've already downloaded it and replaced it. One major thing you want to make sure of when you download a file like this, make sure it's been printed. Make sure there are comments. So come to the comments section and see what people's responses are. If they're positive, then it's probably good. Also confirm that the previews are actual image previews of it printed. These are examples of it. If all it has is a 3D rendition of it, be very cautious because you have an 80% chance that it will fail or higher. We've had people come in, print, they're like, oh, I like this pop-looking Groot character. And they printed it. A couple days later, they came back and it was basically a ball of stringy hair. So it's very important that you do some research and validate that your product that you're printing actually can be printed and has proof. All right, let's jump over into Cura. Over here in Cura, what I need to do is I want to open up my application or I want to open up my file. So I can do this one of two ways. Or actually, I can do this three ways. Three, two, one. Okay, now that we've got this downloaded, let's jump over to Cura. I've got it open already, and my target printer for this example is the Sovol SV06 Plus at the maker spaces. Those are the open framed ones that we have available there. Once you're here, you can drag a file onto here that's an STL. You can go up to the file and say open files, or you can click on the folder, which is usually the easiest way of reference, and find your file on the computer that you downloaded. So here's the Flexi Rex improved. I'm going to open that up. And then the next thing I'm going to do is for the makerspace. The makerspace alone, you don't have to do this if you're at home. This is just the makerspace. Just click on the little edit here and put your name in front. Maybe include an initial, whatever it may be, so that when we print it, if like say the sticker disappears on the machine with your name on it, we know who the print was for. The next thing we want to do is we want to cover moving around on the screen right here and rotating so we can see different angles of the object. There are pre-configured angles from right, left, top, and back. So if we click on any one of these or front, it'll show us different angles by default. On my 3-button mouse, not everybody has this, different on trackpads. On my 3-button mouse, if I click on the right button, yes, the right button, not the left click, but the right click, and hold that down, I can rotate around the stage. If I use my scroller wheel, I can zoom in and out. On the same wheel button, if I click on it and hold it down like it's a button, I can actually pan left to right and up and down. If I use my left button, nothing happens. This button is used for selecting the print, which we will do next. Selecting the print, we initially start off with the Move tool. The Move tool has an X, Y, and Z coordinate, and it color coordinates so you understand where it's moving. Notice by default it has the drop-down model. What this means is if I take this on the Z axis, it will drop down to the plate, which is good. In most cases, that's what we want. However, if we drag it below the plate, anything below the plate will not print. So I'm going to undo that. And it didn't let me. I actually need to drag it above. Okay. You can change it by millimeters. you can lock the model. In other words, so it can't be moved. I don't know why you would do that in this case, but there's other reasons you might. The next thing we want to take a look at is the scale tool. And as you notice, as I hover over this, there are shortcut keys. So we're going to click on that. And by default, it has uniform scaling. So what that means is everything scales proportionally. X, Y, and Z all stay the same. It doesn't change in size in any special thing. For a flexi model, I would not recommend turning off uniform scaling, but you can do it. Notice I can flatten it, but this has changed, so it actually might have issues if I print it like this. So be wary. There's no guarantee it will print correctly in the way it was designed if you modify and squash it and move it around. Just be aware of that. You can change the percentages in here. Snap scaling. I'm going to keep the uniform back on, and snap scaling, basically think of it as scaling to these squares based on that size. So when I scale out, notice it locks it at little jump intervals. If I turn it off, we have much more smooth scaling on this. Now let's jump over to our rotational tool. On the rotational tool, we can rotate X, Y, and Z, the same thing. So I'm going to rotate around so you can see this. And right now it's rotating at 15-degree angles, which is what we have over here. You can actually either set that at 0 or turn that off if you want more of a smooth rotation. Next, what we're going to take a look at, let's actually rotate this. And let's click on this one, which is lay flat. So it infers where's the best way to lay flat on this. Let's say we did it right here. Notice it stands it up. So I'm going to undo. The next tool on this rotation is align to face. So wherever we select this on the face, it will move it onto the print or the print plate. There we go. Sometimes it doesn't like me. There we go. Okay, so that's the basics of rotation with snap rotation. Finally, mirror. In most cases, you won't use this unless you need to invert something, or possibly you built half of something and you need it, rather than building two parts of it like a face, you could just mirror it and print a symmetrical face. That's a good example, whatever that might be. Or I could have two dinos that look like they're, let's see here, if I right click on this and I say multiply by 1, okay. I could take this, rotate it, then move it. And I could do something like that, a dino bridge. All right, next. Let's take a look at our slicing tools. So if we don't even need to select this. Let's just zoom in, that's funny. And let's click on slice. Now we haven't configured anything, we haven't gone into our settings, but if we click on preview, we can see what the slice looks like. Over on the right here is the layers. So right now we have 64 layers, and it shows that we have what looks like a gyroid infill. I'll explain what that is in a moment. And then over here is how the pin tool will actually follow and feed it. Just some preview. There's more advanced tools you can look at in this later, but we're going to bring this up to the top. And let's jump back to prepare up in the top. We're going to click on the settings where it says draft right here. And we're going to change this from gyroid. Just as the example, most cases we actually would recommend you keep it at gyroid. But the reason why we're going to do lines is so you can see what 10% infill density with lines. Remember, it was a swivel beforehand. Now if we click on preview and we change our layer lines, notice that it's actual lines here instead of swivels. Now if we change this from 10% to something like 40% and slice again, this will change how much material is inside. In other words, the infill and how dense it is, infill density. The next thing we'll take a look at, we'll jump this back over to 10%, is we'll look at adhesion. So by default, in the basic environment, not the custom. I'm not going to jump into the custom. The custom gets a little bit more advanced, and you know what? Let's take a look preview. There's a lot more going on here, and I haven't even revealed all the stuff that can be revealed in this. But we'll stay in here for now. This little outline that you see on the print, this is called a skirt. This is really good when you're printing something that's like a flexible piece, and it needs help adhering to the plate, so it doesn't, possibly when the printer head is moving over and printing it out, it doesn't shift it funny. It just keeps it connected together. Not always needed, but it's good to have, at least on the Sobel printers. Now, if you turn on adhesion and we slice it again, we get something called a brim, and this gives more adhesion. This is really good when using supports or when we definitely don't want something to move around, that we feel like it will move around. I printed something the other day, a vase of some, or a vase, however you'd like to pronounce that, and out of nowhere, it did not have enough adhesion. Well, it was 70% of the way, and it kicked it off the printer, and I lost that print. So in some cases, brim is very acceptable and very much needed. For example, if we rotate our dinosaur, we come back to preview so we can actually experience supports. I'm going to take this. I'm going to rotate that, let's say like this. We got it up to our 90 degree or close to it. And let's say supports. And we'll say normal everywhere. And we'll say slice. And we add preview. And so what everywhere is doing with normal is it's giving us these vertical lines so that it does not fail when it's tilted. It adheres to the brim, so everything stays in the same place and doesn't get moved. And then it also puts this support breakout that we will actually break out once it prints in the eyeball, in between the teeth, just to make it stable, but it makes it a lot harder to pull apart. Not always the best. We actually recommend tree, but let's take a look at what touching build plate for normal looks like. Well, that looks like it actually did the same thing. Okay. Sometimes what would happen is we would not get it inside the mouth itself when it does just touching build plate. I wonder if that makes a difference for... Ah, yeah. Notice how instead of inside each of the teeth, it's just doing what's from here underneath the build plate. So the eye doesn't get it, the teeth don't get it. But let's switch over to everywhere and then tree. So a tree looks exactly like you would imagine. It's a tree. Tree trunks come up and out and build everywhere they can. Notice that the tree doesn't feel a need to print here, but it does inside the teeth. Now, if I say touching build plane only for the tree, and we actually do recommend at FundedYouth that you do the tree in most cases, notice it actually gives you less where it's actually printing, but still the tree kind of touches everything. That's just the way the tree works. Final point is when you're ready to print, you click Save to Disk, wherever you're going to save it. In most cases, it would be the micro SD card that you attach, and then you'd make sure that it's saved as G-code. This also, as you can see, lets us save it as different file formats now. This used to not be available in Cura, but the newest versions have allowed this, and you can do it as 3MF, but you want to make sure it's in G-code. You'll go ahead and you'll save that, and then you can open the folder.